Now then, we're back again, slightly different setup. Not sure I'm happy with this yet. What do you guys think? Anyway, the Don't Tell Show are going to do another indie review today. This time it's Fool. Fool is a 2024 independent feature film written, edited, directed by and starring Gage Clift. His first solo feature after acting in several others, including the excellent Seventh, found footage sci-fi that I highly recommend.
What? Do you have a map?
Yeah.
Where?
It's in the glove box.
Get in.
No, either you get out of the car, we're seeing the movie without you.
But anyway, back to Fool. Synopsis. Embarking on what would be an emotional and nostalgic 3-year journey, filmmaker Gage Clift dusts off his childhood movies in an attempt to finally bring them to life. As with Gage's previous short films, or shorter films, this is a film of heavy introspection and memory and seeking answers. So I was very curious how he would navigate all those avenues on a much larger canvas. And the answer is with much energy and much warmth.
I come down the street, I had to get because I was supposed to be angry, I can't remember about what.
You found out that Weird Boy burnt your robe.
Oh, that's what it was.
He burned my robe, that's all that's left of her.
Oh my God, that's a sad sight.
Yeah, I shot him 3 times for it.
Much more than in my previous favourite of his, Singularity, which went to some very, very dark places and felt very static and confined.
She started crying and ran off. She later told the principal and I was suspended. And that, my friends, is the world we live in. What world is that? It's a world full of assholes and pussies. The assholes are always getting into trouble for calling out the pussies on their shit, and that's because assholes know shit when they smell it, and I tell you, they know it all too well.
But this one puts the pedal to the metal and just keeps moving all the way through. Which is great because nostalgia can become a bit of a drag, really. You know, it's nice to visit, but you don't want to get stuck there. I really like that this film knew when to stick and move. It does have quiet and more contemplative moments than they're much needed, but then it keeps going, it keeps moving, it keeps searching for those answers. It keeps you interested. It keeps you on your toes. I think this is something I've talked about somewhere else, where like some people that I was with uni would make films about very serious subjects, and they would make them just have one tone all the way through, and sort of for the first few minutes it works, but then after a while it wears off. You know, you can have a really depressing opening to a film and it can have a great effect on the audience, but if then the next scene is depressing and the next scene and the next scene, and eventually you just become numb to it. But I think if you're doing that, firstly this one is doing it in that warm sort of way, so you don't really want to leave. You could get bored. But what it does is build that emotion, and it holds you there, but you know at some point that it's going to shift. You're like, he's going to find something, or there's going to be, because there always is. When you look back, you'll find something not so... I think like my brain tends to remember the funniest things for no reason at all, but occasionally if you dig around a bit more, you'll find something else. Something someone said, something happened. So I felt like he had me right where he wanted me with this warm nostalgia thing, because at some point he was going to shift gears, and because of my emotion was already high, he was going to go through the roof. And
So I will leave it at that. This is Fool.
But the energy that he creates and the energy that he sustains in this film is really something, because there is a thing with folk filmmaking and truly independent films where it tend to be improvised scenes, wide angles, lav mics, slow burns, real-time action, which is great. I love that. But with Fool and Daniel Hutchins' latest thing, Fifth Quarter, we get something that's totally different.
In a world where everything is a walk away, and the furthest trip to a game can be made 3 times in a day, the 4 corners of the world are within earshot of each other, and always ready to play.
We're seeing some really vibrant montage editing, and all the way through as well. Both of those films maintain that energy for the entire feature-length runtime. Obviously you can't do that if it's a montage, like Rocky time passage sort of montage either. We're talking Soviet montage, right, where every image is adding to the whole, which is of course perfectly fitting for a film that flits about in space and time constantly.
Go. Kill Bill, copy.
One thing that was on my mind all the way through the film was that there's a difference between a diary or a vlog and documenting yourself creatively, because These ones are so direct that you will remember you'll remember what you felt that day, what you did that day. But when you're being creative, half the time you don't actually realise what you're putting into it. It's not until you look back years later and you're like, oh wait, I understand now. I understand why I was doing that, or I understand what that story seemed to me to be inspired by that film or that time, but really I was trying to get this off my chest, or I was trying to find out this. And you understand more about where you were at that place, or where everything was, because sometimes your motivations are under the surface. They're the subtext of what it is, and you're really focusing on the text at the time, because you can only realise that with hindsight. And it made me wonder, like, in say 10 years time, how we'll look back on this period of sequels and reboots and rehashes and stuff, and as a sort of collective cultural consciousness. Like, what will those films teach us then? Will they teach us anything, or will we look back and realise that this was a time when the collective consciousness kind of became fractured and spread out, and we're all in our own little pockets of communities now, so much that we won't come back together and all have a big moment. Like people were complaining recently that there will never be another Pulp Fiction, but maybe there'll be 50 more Pulp Fictions that smaller groups of people will all appreciate and be inspired by. I don't know.
What's my spot? All right.
So yeah, Fool, a fantastic debut, very assured editing, and very clever editing as well, because the style that he's gone for, if you were going to go out and shoot from scratch, it's a lot of time and a lot of setups to get that amount of footage. But he already had it all, all his old films, so it's a very clever way to create that atmosphere with what you already have. Like they say, work with what you know. And that's what he did, but there's also the conflict there, because he was trying to figure out what he knew, what he knew when he made those, or why he made those. There's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of curiosity. And for me, I personally found it very inspiring, because I'm always trying to find that balance between holding a shot and throwing everything at you. Gage has really got that there. I think that, like I said, the film knows when to stick and move. It's a rich tapestry of the personal, the creative, the experimental. It's everything that you want out of an indie film, and everything that AI can't replicate, which I think is even more important thing to say now, that the people who aren't worried about AI are the people making films like this, because AI cannot create that experience. So yeah, that's Fool. The link will be in the description as always. Please do give it a watch. If you do, tell them we sent you. We are the Don't Tell Show. If you liked, please subscribe.